Today, I have the honor to welcome Mr. V. Suresh. He is the co-founder and chief business officer of Karkinos Healthcare Private Limited. He is listed as the most enterprising entrepreneur to look out for in 2023 in the anniversary issue of the Business Today magazine. He is awarded Top 10 Chief Business Officer 2022 by CEO Insights magazine and Top 5 CBOs to watch in 2022 by CIO Today magazine. He has graduated in instrumentation and control engineering with a postgraduate degree in management from Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. He is a very passionate leader with an excellent record of building India's #1 job site from scratch to getting it listed in India and delivering consistent results through high-performing teams. He is on the boards of few business schools as an academic advisor and a speaker in many B schools and HR forums. He has over 27 years of work experience in B2B businesses, internet startups, leadership, and business management. He has attended various management development programs at the Wharton Business Management School, Pennsylvania, and Indian School of Business, Hyderabad, and Tata Management Training Center, Pune. In his previous role as the Chief Business Officer at Matrimony.com, he leveraged data analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning to digitalize the matchmaking service business market in India. He has managed a team of young, energetic, and high-performing tech, product, marketing, and sales professionals in delivering world-class products and services. As the Chief Sales Officer at Naukri.com and NaukriGulf.com, he managed a team of 1,000 plus young and dynamic professionals spreading across India, Dubai, Bahrain, Qatar, and Riyadh. He managed a business of more than $125 million. He is instrumental in conceptualization and driving new HR processes on talent acquisition, talent management, induction, training, and leadership programs. He has also won the Impact Business Leader Award at InfoEdge. Without any further ado, I welcome Mr. V. Suresh.
Om Sri Sai Ram. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo, Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat, Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sri Sai Ram. Offering my most humble pranams to Bhagawan, who's verily sitting in front of us, who's listening to us, who's also the one who's making us think, making us do, and making us speak the way we need to conduct ourselves. It's indeed a privilege to be here. And to me, as I was saying, I'm not like a guest who's coming and speaking here. I was on the other side, probably about 27 years back, So I know how difficult it is to stay awake after a solid meal. And I'm sure most of you would have woken up a bit early for Suprabhatam, and maybe most of you must have also been actively involved in organizing this event, because the speciality or the uniqueness of our institute is everything is done by the students. So I will try and ensure that you are all awake, and whatever message that Swami wants me to communicate through this next 90 minutes, I pray to Swami to ensure that I deliver the message in a manner which seems appropriate and all of you gain something. So let's all do some exercise before we really get on, because this exercise will keep you awake and probably will be the only significant takeaway that you will have. If you were to fast forward your life 20 years from now, and if you were to recollect many of the things that your professors, teachers and guest lecturers like us will do, this would probably be something that could come handy for you. So all I need for this exercise is somebody who can be a timekeeper, a volunteer who could just keep 90 seconds. Stopwatch, 90 seconds. When I say start, start. And I would also want 2 or 3 volunteers who after this exercise will volunteer to share your experiences of what you went through, so that I know that I am talking and you are listening. That somewhere there is a two-way communication. So what we will do is, I want each one of you either to close your eyes or open your eyes, but don't sleep. Okay. What you need to do is think of one moment in your life, any one moment in your life. I'll make it simple. Think of any moment in your life where everybody around you said you are the best. You felt like you are on top of the world. Right? All of us have that one moment. I mean, for me, that first one moment was when I had the darshan of Baba in Kodaikanal, when Swami spoke to me first. First time Swami spoke to me was that moment which transformed my life. So if I were to pick up that moment, one moment in my life, I would say the moment I had the darshan of the Lord of the universe, darshan of the very God who came in human form for all of us. So some of you may not have even had the chance to see Swami physically, had darshan, sparshan, sambhashan, but you may have had multiple experiences with Bhagawan, whatever be it. I'm not going to give you tips of what that moment has to be. Think of that moment, and you know what you need to do is to, one, you visualize that moment where your parents, your relatives, your friends, your teachers, they were all proud of you and you felt very good. And the moment you have got back to that moment, what you need to do is to feel how you felt that time. For example, if you, let's say, got a gold medal and you got an award and you felt like super happy, you were on top of the world, you achieved something in the world. How did you feel? So what was the feeling that you experienced at that moment? So I want you to visualize that feeling. Maybe you should actually transport yourself to that moment. And after 90 seconds, when you have finished, when our dear brother says stop, I would want some of you to just walk up, stand up and say, hey, this is what I felt. Right? Let's start. Brother, time starts now. Time up. So anyone, at least 3 or 4 volunteers, if you have a mic, you can speak from there. Otherwise, you can come here. Just share what went through you. Anyone? Any volunteer? Otherwise, I will pick my own. You are not tested or measured for this. There is no right or wrong answer here. The second one with the vibhuti. What's your name? Huh? Balaji. Yes, Balaji. Because you are all not volunteering and I have a cut-off. Yes, Balaji. Go ahead.
Sairam sir, what you told, I felt I had one moment when I could feel that. It's just recently that the 15 days holidays, I visited Tirumala. I'm a regular visitor, but then this time when I went, I had a really blissful darshan of Lord Venkateshwara. As I was entering, I could see the Garuda, and then I could feel this time more the presence of Lord Venkateshwara. Perhaps I was in tears, but then I can recollect and I can energize myself whenever I get that.
Tell me the feeling. How did you feel? See, feeling statements are felt happy, I felt overjoyed, I was feeling like crying. These are feeling statements. Don't give me facts.
My heart was beating fast. I was trembling, and I could feel the tears in my eyes flow down. And it's just that at that moment, I felt nothing mattered to me, but I had blissful at that moment.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Balaji. I'll come back to the significance of this. Thank you so much, Balaji. Anyone else? Anyone? Don't look at the other person. You can. Anybody? If you're not comfortable in English, you can speak in whichever language that you are comfortable with. See, if you don't start, I'm going to pick up volunteers. Sairam. Tell me your name, brother.
So my name is Karan. Karan.
Karan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Karan.
So this was a moment when my 12th class result was out and I scored a good marks. So everybody was like appreciating me. So that time I felt that I achieved something in my life.
You achieved something in your life.
Yeah.
Achieved something in your life is a fact.
Yeah. So I was like happy and I was feeling like, yeah, I can do much better than this.
Happy.
Yes, sir. I was happy.
Very good. Happy, proud,
Yes, sir.
satisfied.
Just satisfied that I make my parents happy.
Superb. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Karan. Anyone? One more. Your name? Sai? You didn't have lunch?
Sir, my name is Sai Bharadwaj, sir.
Sai?
Bharadwaj.
Bharadwaj. Yeah, Bharadwaj.
Sir, my moment was first time acted as a lead character in Muddenahalli. When we went to Partiyatra as a district, we performed this drama named Parent to Parent. So, in this, I acted as a Lava, son of Rama. In front of Swami, acting first time was very happy. And when I look at that photos and videos, it always bring back the moment to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Karan. Thank you, Bharadwaj, and thank you, Balaji. See, what is the lesson that we learned from this? I'm sure each one of you would have such experiences. See, what happens in life is life is not a straight line. It's a sinusoidal curve. We have crests and troughs. Some of you physics students, you would know crest and troughs. Life is Always you have days and nights. Always you have crests and troughs. No matter how spiritual we are, no matter how close to Swami we are, how much we do prayer, God will put us to tests. We all will go through tests. And in fact, if you look at the lives of Nayanmars and Alvars and many of the devotees of God, whether you look at Prahalad, whether you look at Harishchandra, whether you look at any devotee of Bhagavan, whether it is in the Rama avatar or whether it is in the Krishna avatar or whether in Sai avatar, the more closer we go to God, the more challenges that we face. Why? Because God wants us to promote, right? Promotion is always, Swami was talking to us once, and Swami was saying that for you to just pass an MBA degree, how much you suffer, how many exams you write, how many sleepless nights that you go through. But if you have to pass in the life, you will have to go through tests. And Swami says, I will put you through tests because I'm going to promote you from one stage to other stage to other stage to other stage. So, even whether it is in the walk of life of business or in spirituality or as a student, every human being born on earth will go through troubles and challenges. Now, why this exercise is very important is when you get up in the morning, like the way we do Omkar, we do Suprabhat, can you all take few minutes? This is my request to you. Practice this. Take few minutes to think of how you were at your best, how the world appreciated you. Each one of us are uniquely gifted with some talent. I'm sure some of you are cricketers, some of you are musicians, some of you will sing, some of you will dance, some of you will score marks, some of you will be a great singer, football player, maybe somebody is good in art. But when you are good at something, can you recognize the fact that you are good? You have achieved something. And again, to be a student of Bhagavan, Swami chooses each one of us. It is not as if that you write an entrance exam and you pass and you come here. If you think so that you are here because you applied for this university, you wrote an entrance exam, you got in here, no. You can't become a student of Swami, even you can't come into Puttaparthi or Vrindavan or Muddenahalli and have your feet down there without Swami's will. Swami says, not even a blade of grass moves without my will. In My Baba and I, I'm sure how many of you have read My Baba and I, John S. Hislop talks about free will and God's will, and Swami, he has asked Swami this question of what is the meaning of surrender and what is self-will, what is God's will. So, to be here, all of us are extremely privileged. So, when you realize the fact that you are unique, you are gifted, and you are with Swami, living in the presence of Swami, there is no better gift that we all can be grateful for. So, can we start the day, every day, with an attitude of gratitude for what we are, what we have achieved for? So, this is my first experience, or rather I would say an advice that I want all of you to start with. Now let me get into the topic of the art and science of building startups. How many of you think that building a company is a science or it's a set of principles? You need to have good financial acumen, good marketing acumen, good technology acumen, good product acumen, whatever. So how many of you think it's a science? Raise your hands. How many of you think that building a company is a science? Only some of you, only 8, 9 of you. So the rest of you think it's an art, right? It's neither an art nor a science. I mean, there are so many companies with great leadership, great talent, great idea. They have succeeded, and some have not succeeded. So the success or failure of an enterprise or a startup is a combination of the art, which is the right brain. I'm sure how many of you have heard about right brain, left brain. The right brain is more the creative brain. The left brain is more the analytical brain. So you need a combination of both a right brain and left brain approach to build companies. I mean, our inspiration on our journey today in Karkinos emanates from none other than Mr. Tata, who said, I would urge that we all think big. Think of doing things not in small increments, not in small deltas, but seemingly impossible things. Nothing is impossible if you really set out to accomplish things and if you act boldly. This is what a business leader said. Imagine what Swami has done. In any of his projects, Swami has actually fixed the deadline first and worked backwards. I don't know how many of you remember when the super specialty hospital was inaugurated on November 23rd. Swami made that announcement a year before. And it was a bare land, a village, where a project of that magnitude happened. And it happened because of obviously the divine intervention of Swami, but even as a manager, even as a leader in human form, Swami ensured that all his projects, whether it is a water project, whether it's an institute, whether it is medical projects, each of the projects of Bhagawan have never ever gone one step backward. And that is the inspiration or the drive or the right brain attitude that determines building startups. Coming to the mundane aspects of building companies, what differentiates successful companies, successful startups from not so successful startups is their ability to understand the customer insight. Customer insight is the best kept secret, which means, for example, if you look at Amazon, if you look at Ola, if you look at Uber, if you look at Zomato, if you look at Naukri.com, if you look at Karkinos, in all of these startups, the key differentiator for a startup is the ability of the founders or the leadership team to understand what is that customer looking for? What is that customer insight? For example, when Naukri.com was started, it was the customer insight of Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani. When Mr. Sanjeev Bikhchandani was he is from IIM Ahmedabad and he is probably the Ratan Tata of the Indian internet industry. And you know, I had a privilege of working very closely with him. I mean, I can say today probably one of the best Indian internet startups is Naukri.com. And why it became what it became is because of the deep customer insight that Mr. Bikhchandani had. For example, he used to talk to us saying, when he was working in Smithline Bisham, those days it was Horlicks as a brand, he used to see the IIM grads going to libraries and looking at Business Today magazine from the last few pages, because the last few pages of Business Today and Business World had appointments. And these were the brilliant kids. I mean, you know, there is no better institute than IIM's or IIM Ahmedabad or IIM Bangalore those days for businessmen. And he used to think as to why these guys have achieved so much but they are still looking out for an appointment. And when the headhunters' calls used to come, each of these guys used to pick up those calls. Then he realized that jobs as a category is something that nobody will ever say no to, because you will always want to progress in career. So that insight that he picked up, eventually, then he built a database of jobs before the internet era, and then used internet to build something. So the message that we have in this is, if today you want to build a startup or you want to be a part of, it's not just about startups. Even if you want to work in an organization, and there are entrepreneurs. I'm sure you must have all heard about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are people who are a part of an organization, who work in an organization, but who have an entrepreneurial spirit. So what is important for each one of us is, are we able to understand what is the obvious need and the hidden need, the latent and the not so latent needs of customers. And organizations which succeed are the ones who are able to anticipate demands which could potentially come in by leveraging data, leveraging artificial intelligence, leveraging data analytics. And today we are actually coming to a level where, if you look at Meta or Facebook, or if you look at LinkedIn, all these guys are able to kind of visualize what your intentions are by the kind of search. Even, for example, Google. All of them, Google, Microsoft, Meta, LinkedIn, Naukri.com, all of them are able to kind of go farther than what your intentions are to think as to what you're going to think. Am I able to kind of predict using data analytics, doing intelligence, to figure out what are my future needs? And ideas. Every company that succeeds, they succeed because they have a better idea. And when it comes to ideas, ideas can come from anyone. When you lead a team, or when you become a part of an organization, please note that an idea does not always come from people in power. Idea does not come from authorities. Idea does not come from because you have a designation or you are the top leader or whatever. Ideas come from even anyone. And I think there is no better way for us, when each one of you, when you could have been a part of a sports day function in Puttaparthi, every sports day, we all do innovative stuff. And most of those innovations need not always come from the teachers. So many times it has come from the students. So many times it has come from a fresher. In my own experience, when I was in Naukri, we used to hire students from management, B schools as management trainees. Many of the new product ideas, new innovations, we've always picked up when I had gone to various branches, when I used to interact with them. When I asked them to ask questions, you will be shocked to say that when people do not have any inhibition of what you know or what you don't know, or what is possible or what is not possible, because sometimes we could become myopic about what is possible in an organization, because if I have spent 10 years in a company, or if I have spent 10 years in a business, by virtue of me having spent so long, I may have an inhibition of accepting certain challenges. So it's very important to understand that whenever there is a problem, every problem gives you an opportunity. So problems and opportunities are like two sides of the coin. You can see a problem as a problem, or you can see a problem as an opportunity and go behind it and solving it. And the unique differentiator for somebody who can innovate is his ability to, childlike ask questions. The moment you ask why, more often than not, any of you want to have a break to drink water, please go. and drink water, or you can take a break and come back. I mean, I know it's tough to keep yourself awake. So, childlike curiosity in understanding the customer pain point. So the childlike curiosity comes from, for example, when you observe children and when you go and play with them, sometimes they ask very obvious questions. And when they ask you those obvious questions, we think, isn't that so obvious? But more often than not, we learn a lot of things by being open to questions which come from people who are not related to the industry. And lastly, typically what happens in startups is you get somebody to fund you. We call them as investors. And when somebody funds you, you have a choice to say, hey, I will start doing marketing, I will start doing advertising, I will spend money, I will, maybe come up with a TV ad, or today I'll do search engine optimization or search engine marketing or whatever. I'll spend money on Google. But understand that unless you get your product right, unless you get your customer segment right, unless your pricing right, we talk about the 4 P's of marketing: price, product, place, promotion, today it's packaging. Unless you get all of that right, no point in spending money. The next important element of building an organization is having the right culture. I mean, they say culture will eat strategy for breakfast. So culture of an organization is not what you write in the books or not what you write in the walls, but culture is what you practice. So for example, if you look at the Sathya Sai Institute or Sathya Sai organization, some of the basic dictums that we follow are help our, hurt never, love all, serve all. And when we say this, help our, hurt never, love all, serve all, how do we imbibe this? Because you've seen Swami. You've seen Swami, today you see our lecturers, our teachers, they walk the talk. The culture of Sathya Sai organization, Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, Sathya Sai Institute of Medical Sciences, or anything that has the prefix Sathya Sai is defined by the people who conduct themselves. So when you want to build an organization which is humble, simple, innovative, first thing is, are you willing to challenge all assumptions? Are you willing to accept status quo, or are you willing to move on? Are you willing to learn? Do you have an organization that builds learning? Do you have an organization? For example, if you look at the sports meet from maybe 1989 to 2024, 2023, at every sports meet you could have seen how technology has been embraced very well. How each of the campuses innovated, right? You can say sports meet is just one, but sports meet is one of the beautiful ways of an opportunity which Swami gave all of us to exhibit our talent and also exhibit our gratitude to Swami, right? So leverage the first mover advantage. For example, most of the organizations which have succeeded, whether it is Naukri.com or whether it is Karkinos or whether it is many of the organizations or Google, organizations succeeded because they were able to leverage the first mover advantage. Because once you are a first mover, the gap between you and the nearest competitor becomes so huge that you can keep building on it. And it's not always that only the early mover benefits. Because there are a lot of organizations. For example, if you look at Xerox, which I was a part of, Xerox was the one which invented the mouse first. But they did not capitalize on it. I mean, it was Palo Alto's research center in Xerox which the mouse was innovated. But Xerox did not capitalize on that innovation. And what capitalized was, the other companies. So at times, you may be the first mover, but you may miss out. And while building an organization of innovation, we need to have certain principles that we will agree to disagree. Because when you have intelligent people in a room, let's understand that there will be conflicts. When I say conflict, new ideas. For example, everybody does not need to believe that what the CEO says or what the boss says is right. You should, one, as a leader, have the humility to allow multiple views, have the humility to accept that somebody else who is junior to you probably may have a much better idea. And when you have a difference of opinion or when you have a brainstorming session, you need to disagree with that particular view of the person, but not the person. So for example, if a teacher is teaching in the class and the student is asking a question, the student may be asking a very simple question or maybe saying that, sir, what if I do this way? Or why I shouldn't do this way? I mean, the teacher can actually take it on his ego and say, hey, this is the only way to do. Go ahead. Or they can say, okay, go on, tell me more. How are you? So I can encourage, when you become leaders and when you interact with your team members, understand that it is not right to kill an idea before the guy actually expresses it. I mean, you give an opportunity for somebody to express his views and disagree or agree. It doesn't matter. And most important thing is, don't go by who said, but what is being said. I mean, I may be somebody who's probably the lowest ranker in the class. But on that particular topic that has been discussed today, I may have something which is very different. So it need not be that, somebody who's a, 5 out of 5 is always going to be right in all the points. So the leader need not always be right. Leader can also be wrong. And Swami had his own ways, right? I mean, when Swami used to, interact with students, Swami used to take feedback from students and pass it on to authorities. Swami as a leader, if you observe, Swami as a manager, you observe, Swami has practiced all of these things. He had his own ways of taking feedback. He had his own ways of 360-degree feedback. He had his own ways of knowing what the pulse of the students are. Not from a divine element. Obviously, as a divine, he knows everything. He knows now, right now, he's sitting here and listening to us and he knows what we are talking. But as a human being, Swami exhibited leadership styles of how to run an organization. And most important element of building companies is to build teams. What makes a group of people come together to work, but also, chemistry? How do we build the joy? For example, when Puttaparthi, Vrindavan, Anantapur compete, but they collaborate. I mean, there is nothing called competition in Sathya Sai organization. For example, there are different state presidents who do the same project. They all compete, but they collaborate. So the point is, when you are building teams, build a team where you want to collaborate for a larger mission. And when you are building teams, there are, typically when you look at TEAM, there are 4 critical aspects of building a team or building a company or building an organization. Is one, what is the purpose? What is the purpose of what we are doing? For example, if you look at any of the projects of Swami, the purpose is selfless service. It's selfless service. No institution on earth can give the highest quality of education that is offered in Sathya Sai University free of cost. Impossible. Next to impossible. No hospital in the world can offer the highest quality medical care with love, with empathy, like what happens in Puttaparthi or in Vrindavan or in Whitefield, or our hospitals. Our hospitals are not hospitals. Our hospitals are Institute of Medical Sciences. They are They are temples of healing. Right? So look at the water project. Anything that is done with a purpose. That purpose defines the organization. Next is management, effective management. It's all about, are you able to use resources less with more? More with less. Activating efficiency. Are you efficiently managing it or not? And mutual direction. Is there a purpose? Is there an effective management? Is there efficiency? And is there a direction? I'll spend few minutes explaining what all this means. The purpose is all about the why. The great themes understand the why. They're all connected to a greater purpose. The purpose is the mission. So for example, in the world of business, we call it as vision, mission, and values. The vision is the larger goal. The mission is how you will achieve that vision. And the values are what are the non-compromising characteristics, behaviors. For example, if you look at any of the projects of Swami or any of the institutions of Swami, the uncompromising values, love all, serve all, help our, hurt never, selfless service, right? Anywhere there is no element, there is no 0 or a 1. There's no 0.5, either it's a 0 or a 1. Great teams remind their players on a daily basis on the significance of their history. When I say the significance of the history, today we are all proud when we say that the vision of the avatar, vision of the organization, how it evolved, right? No matter where you go, a Sai student means he is supposed to be like this. There should be no compromise on certain expectations. That's what Swami said. I mean, in fact, in the recent, one of the Samarpans, one of our brothers was talking about how in Trai Brindavan, one of the elderly devotees came to Swami and said, Swami, my so-and-so person is going abroad to do studies. And Swami said, oh. And that elderly devotee said, Swami, he's your student. Swami said, no. I mean, imagine Swami saying no to the fact. And then the authorities and the senior faculty members all told Swami, Swami, he's a student, Swami. Swami said, he studied in the institute, but he is not my student. You know what is the message? You can study in the institute, but you still can't be a student because you don't follow certain values. And Swami then went on to define what is the definition of a student. So what is important is, are we living up to the expectations or the definitions of the history or the values? Frame the history. And constantly, Swami is, why I pick up Swami is, I haven't seen any leader in my 27 years of life who has taught me very, very basic management than Swami has taught us. There are so many leaders. I mean, I would say all my bosses whom I have worked with have been exceptional. But the ability to lead without an expectation, selflessly, is what Swami has never ever done anything for himself, right? Morning to evening, he has given darshan, he has picked up letters, he has spoken to devotees, he has spoken to students. Is there anything that he had done for himself? Never. So, and what has he done in discourses? So many discourses, he has communicated the why. Why? I mean, I would urge all of you to read Swami's literature. There is no better management book than Swami's literatures. This is something which will resonate very well with all of you. I'm sure all of you are now watching IPL, which is coming in. IPL is now a brand which is very, very close to all of us. And, you know, in 1996, I remember when the World Cup was there, Swami gave us permission to watch the World Cup in our hostel. Uh, in fact, the Indian cricket team came in Bangalore along with, I think, the Sri Lankan cricket team for Swami's Darshan in 1996 when I was there. So, what is the difference between Chennai Super Kings and Royal Challengers? Any of you? I'm going to wake up some of you who are sleeping. This is a topic which is closer to all of you. How many of you haven't seen a single RCB match? How many of you have not seen an IPL match? Anyone who has not seen an IPL match? I'm not talking about going to the grounds and seeing TV. All of you have seen IPL? Yes? Tell me what is the difference between RCB and what is the difference between CSK? RCB had the best of the talent. In fact, I used to play cricket, and I played cricket in Puttaparthi. I was a university player, captain when I was in school. So, I was qualified for Ranji as well. I didn't play for whatever reasons. So, I am passionate about cricket. The difference between RCB and CSK is the culture. RCB had the best talent. Yuvraj Singh, Virat Kohli, A.B. de Villiers. Name all the best of the best talent. And they were all youngsters, fit. When you look at CSK, he had Dhoni. The only difference was Dhoni. He created a culture where he picked ordinary players and created extraordinary outcomes of ordinary players. Extraordinary outcomes from an ordinary player, whether it is Ambati Rayudu or whether it is Ravichandran Ashwin or whether it is Jadeja, whether it is come again? Suresh Raina, Rituraj Gaikwad. Right? So many of these youngsters were identified, groomed by Dhoni. So, for an organization to succeed, you don't need PhDs. You don't need top rankers. What you need is a culture where everybody feels wanted, everybody feels respected, everybody feels recognized. And when you bring ordinary people and give extraordinary culture, the ordinary team performs extraordinarily. And Swami has done this multiple times. You look at all the MBA students or all the MTech students or all the students of Puttaparthi. They may not have had access to technology the way outside colleges may have had. In my days, when I talk about 94, 96, we may have certain innate disadvantages of not being allowed to go out and do an internship, not getting access to, but we had access to some of the best faculty, best, visiting faculty, whatever. But within the limitations of a village like Puttaparthi, how Swami built one of the best super specialty hospitals, how he created management students who could even go and compete with the IIMs of the world and in fact do better, is because of the culture, because of the values, because of the Suprabhartam that we used to get up in the morning, we used to go for jogging, we used to go for, all those activities. In fact, I would say the unique differentiation is the hostel life, as to what you learn in the hostel. In fact, those days we used to think it is kind of monotonous. But when I look back, 14 people in a room without a fan, we used to sleep on the floor, share a toilet, take a bucket and go, walk without chappals to mandir. So much we have done. And those, today when I look at it, have actually shaped most of us. And so the most important element is, are you building a culture where people are wanted, people are respected? And that determines success. Effective management is about understanding various leadership styles. And leadership style is not cast in stone. For example, again I will take the example of cricket. When you look at Dhoni, why I am taking cricket is because that is something that you all can connect to. Dhoni is a great keeper. He's a great batsman. But how he became a captain? Do you know how? Anyone? Why did the BCCI chose Dhoni over many of the other leaders who are actually senior to him? You know what? When Dhoni was a brash cricketer, and he used to have a long hair, and he was very uncommon on the slip cordon. Again, for want of, if you don't understand cricket, I will have to explain what is a slip cordon. There is the way you stand as a wicket keeper. There are 3 or 4 slips which are there next to the wicket keeper. They had VVS Lakshman. VVS Lakshman is Swami's devotee. I don't know how many of you have heard Lakshman. Lakshman, Dravid, Tendulkar, Saurav Ganguly. These were the guys who were on the sides. And as a young wicket keeper, Dhoni used to go, because he is watching the batsman and he is behind the wickets. He used to go and tell the seniors that, I think this is the way you have to bowl. This is the way you have to set the field. Change the field. One, he had the guts, because they are all big brands. When you are in an organization, you could be the junior most guy in the organization, but you have an idea. Do you take the risk or the effort to go and talk and say, hey, do this? One, he had the courage. He had the intelligence. He had the communication. And he was successful, because whenever he asked for the bowler to make changes, wickets fell, because he was glued, he was concentrating, he was focused. So, it is about, one, establishing a culture of collaboration. He didn't go and say, hey, I have a eureka idea. He built a culture of collaboration. Then this whole thing about, as a leader, do you follow Trikarana Shuddhi? Do you walk the talk? Harmony of thought, word and deed. Because when you are a boss or when you are a leader, people don't listen to what you say. People observe what you do. So if there is a disconnect between, for example, if Dhoni says, come for practice at 4:30 in the morning, and if he comes at 6 o'clock in the morning, nobody is going to respect him. If he says we need to build a culture with youngsters and he himself is not fit. So, what is more important in a leadership style is, one, are you building a collaborative culture? Are you walking the talk? Are you allowing people to challenge you? These are some of the ways in which you can build. How do you build efficiency? It's all about your ability to embrace change. And let me tell you, in the world of technology today, every day a new technology comes and the old technology becomes redundant. For example, most of you would have heard about the Nokia story. Nokia was probably the undisputed leader in the mobile phones. All of you would have heard the BlackBerry story. BlackBerry was dominating. Once iPhone came in, BlackBerry, nobody knows even what is BlackBerry today. I don't know, most of you would have not seen what is called a pager. Used to have a pagers when I was in Xerox. It used to be a one-way communication. When emails came, when Apple today is kind of dramatically changing the way we look at time. You don't need today any other device other than an Apple phone. An Apple phone can give you time, Apple phone can give you music, it can give you access to emails, it can give you access to WhatsApp, whatever, right? As a phone, how that has dramatically changed the way communications are, right? So, past results don't guarantee any future success. There's a book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. If you get access to that, go and read that book. It talks about how a lot of organizations have failed because they were not able to anticipate change. And leaders who are able to mentally be aware, for example, Swami used to talk about constant integrated awareness. Constant integrated awareness is about your ability to be aware of what you are. And Dhoni, when you watch him in the cricketing field, so many things will happen around him, and he is a captain cool. He's calm, quiet. 20 overs game, he treats it like a test match. He's never nervous. So Swami, if you have observed, in the most challenging times, he used to, when I'm talking about Swami today, I'm talking about Swami as a leader, as a human being who ran the mammoth projects. It's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those who manage change. This is what Darwin's. For want of time, probably I'll skip some of this. These slides will be available to you. One of the most important aspects that differentiates great organizations from average organizations is the way they conduct meetings. They begin and end meetings on time, schedule meetings wisely, engage everyone. For example, there are organizations where people are called into a meeting, but nobody contributes. People come and people have chai and go. No off-topic discussions. I don't know how many of you have heard about the meetings that happen in Amazon. Amazon, the culture is no PowerPoints. And all the people who come for a meeting in Amazon, the guy who calls them for a meeting, they are supposed to give a 4-page or a 5-page document. And all those people who are a part of the meeting in Amazon, once they come in, they all have some time to go through the notes. So when you want to conduct effective meetings, one is call people who are relevant, people come well prepared, and no off-topic discussions. And also, when you call people, calculate the cost of all the people in the meeting. Is there an opportunity loss? And finally, before you leave the meeting, agree on the expectations and the action plans. Great teams always improve by understanding their SWOT. For example, what is my strength? What is my weakness? What is my opportunity? What is my threat? And some of the large organizations which have leveraged, for example, Xerox invented the world called benchmarking. Benchmarking as a concept was invented by Xerox. And Amazon, as I told you about the way Amazon conducts meetings. Amazon, tell me the time, brother. I have another 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So the whole concept of strength, weakness, opportunity and threat, how organizations can understand their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunity and threat, and kind of constantly upskill themselves to meet the dynamic needs of their customers. So, great teams always compete, they agree to disagree, they collaborate and compete. And that's the beauty of successful organizations. And also, some of the great teams, they win in critical situations. We have seen this in our sports meet. It has happened to many of us that the 11th hour, one day before the sports meet, some of the sets that we have built will fail to work. Something else will happen. And how we pull it up. How we pull it up. In fact, some of those people who have put dramas before Swami, many more often than not, we have managed so many situations at the 11th hour. And that's how great teams are. They are innovative. They are always thinking on the feet. And, I will take the example of Dhoni and Virat Kohli. Have you ever seen Virat Kohli fail when in chasing? it's very difficult to chase a target. You can set the target. Invariably, Dhoni as a finisher has always come and played a very, very composed, quiet game, and he makes sure that, we win. And Virat Kohli has done it n number of times for us. So, it is always easy to, win when everything is right or everything is going through our life is constant. But when life is changing and, it's changing in such a sharp or a fast pace, how do you, for example, 4 wickets have fallen, 30 for 4, and you are chasing 250 in the 10th over or 15th over, and if you have Virat Kohli, you can be rest assured that he will take you through. Today you may have different Virat Kohlis, like whether it's a Surya Kumar Yadav today or maybe somebody else today, right? So these are the, attributes of organizations. I'm just going to spend next few minutes as to how we learn to build teams. I will again go to the world of sports. I'm sure all of you know all these 3 players, right? Tendulkar, Messi. Who was the next one? Right? See, all these guys, I'm sure, Tendulkar and Vinod Kambli. You know the story of Vinod Kambli and Tendulkar, right? These guys were school kids. Talent was identified early. They were trained, they were groomed. And Sachin Tendulkar went on to become what he is, and Vinod Kambli had his own issues. But both of them were identified early in life. So, spot the talent early. And when you become a leader, if you get time, engage with students in the campus. Do whatever you can do to, share the knowledge with people in the campus, because these students in the campus potentially can become your brand ambassadors. They can join your organization. They can contribute for you. They can join you as interns, whatever. So, successful organizations actually don't do too much of lateral hiring. They spend a lot of time in building talent. Today, I think whether you look at WPL or IPL or any of these innovations that we have done, I think these are all excellent innovations where talent is identified very early in life. And Bhagawan has showed it to us, right? When Swami embarked on the journey of focusing his time on the students, 70 to 80% of his time he used to spend only with students. Avatar, Bhagawan, Lord comes to earth on a human form. He had so many people who he could have spent time with. But he chose to spend time with students because he realized that if he has to make an impact in the world, he can make an impact in the world by only spending time with kids who are young and shape their thought process. So look for skill and will. Again, it is not about the academic ranks that matter. If you go and look at some of the most successful leaders, it is not that they were all 5 out of 5 in their GPAs. 5 out of 5 in their GPA will qualify you to get an interview call, but it will not get you a job. I'm not saying that doesn't mean that you stop studying today, because you will not even get an interview call if you don't get a 4.5 and above or a 4 and above. That's different. But once you get into a corporate job, it doesn't matter whether you come from an IIM or an IIT or a Sathya Sai Institute or any other institute. What determines your growth is your learning ability, is your attitude, is your positive attitude, your ability to work hard. After that, everything is a level playing field. When I joined Xerox, I was put on par with some of the IIMs. And, I got into a fast-paced growth. Not because I came from an IIM, but because of something else which they saw. So, what I would say is, build the attitude of hard work, build the attitude of humility, build the attitude of learning, build the attitude of being good as a human being. Whatever values that we have learned in this institute, which is very unique, that our ability to let go of the ego, our ability to face challenges, our ability to surrender ourselves to God, even amidst some of the crisis. So, what differentiates our institute is the IQ that we build, not the IEQ that we build, not the IQ. The emotional quotient, the hostel life, compassionate individuals. When we live in a room with 14 different people, I lived it with 14 different people who come from different walks of life, different strata of economic society, different backgrounds, live in the same hostel, sleep on the same floor, do the same activity that we do, irrespective of our economic or intelligent backgrounds or whatever. So, the emotional quotient, the spiritual quotient, the intelligent quotient. So today, there are 3 cues that differentiate successful human beings. And why do you think Dhoni is successful? Because his emotional quotient. So the emotional quotient is, today, the whole world is talking about mental illness. We talk about people committing suicides in some of the top institutes across the world because of pressure, because of the ability to not understand what is failure, because people have not seen failure at all in life, right? So, identifying the stars, building that emotional quotient. And this is another, one picture here talks millions about how Ganguly turned the cricketing world. I mean, when Ganguly took over as the captaincy of Indian cricket was in shambles. There were a lot of, issues around corruption, etc., etc. And he took over a team which had, today, most of the prominent cricketers were groomed by Ganguly. Whether it is Dravid, whether it is Tendulkar, whether it is Dhoni, whether it is Yuvraj Singh, whether it is Zahir Khan, whether it is Gautam Gambhir. All these guys flourished under Ganguly. Simple stuff is encourage experimentation. He allowed Virendra Sehwag to open the batting. He's a hard-hitting cricketer. You know why I go to cricket? Because a lot of stuff that we can learn in management comes from cricket. Sourav Ganguly was an amazing leader who built or rebuilt the Indian cricket team, built on hard work, encouraged experimentation. He backed the high potential performers. Yuvraj Singh was high potential performer, but he had his own off the field extravaganza. But he was able to manage the eccentricity of that top talent and bring the top talent to perform. So when you go into organizations, you will realize some of the top-notch performers may have some signs of eccentricity. As long as that eccentricity does not impact the culture of the organization, we should be able to manage eccentricity and channelize that eccentricity into a manner which it's because if you want all 11 players who have to be subtle, who will be either extroverts or introverts, you will not get. All 5 fingers are different. You will have people in a team, somebody who's extravagant, somebody who's introvert, somebody who's flamboyant, somebody will not fit the box. But the job of a leader is ability to understand how to actually work with diverse characters and build a team to win. And delegate, own failure, credit success. The biggest difference is, you could have seen this with Abdul Kalam. You could have seen this with Dhoni. When a project failed, in the press release, Dr. Abdul Kalam went, took the blame on behalf of the entire team, and when it succeeded, he left one of his team members to go and talk. Similarly is Dhoni. When he wins, he will let the cup being taken by the youngest guy. When he fails, he will not come and blame anybody. He'll say, yeah, we failed, we learned. So, the art of a leader is not determined by your success, but determined by your failure. Celebrate every success, Be passionate and assertive. And you have to play chess. As a leader, you should know when the pawn can actually play the role, when the rook can play the role, where the horse can play the role, where the king can play the role, where the queen can play the role. For example, you can say that this person, is like a pawn. He cannot really do anything. But sometimes you get the pawn to get your queen, right? In the Rama avatar, the squirrels played a very significant role. Hanuman played a very significant role. So many people played a very significant role. And Swami talks about that one boy who gave 10 rupees or 1 rupee for the mammoth project of the hospital. And Swami picked up that letter from him and went ahead and told everybody that this boy saved all the money that was given by his parents for that month's, dhobi clothes or whatever. Right? So, it is no matter how junior or how senior people are, do you know that person in your team whom you could wake up at 11 o'clock in the night if your server goes for a toss, or if some problem happens in your product? It is always your ability to know the chess. And I think, most of us, when we have seen organizations succeed, they are able to succeed because they know how to play the game. And Swami used to do this, wardens used to do this during our sports meet times. They used to have a team of people who have average, above average, and super average, and all of them come together. So nobody is less important or more important. And anarchy is not bad at all. Anarchy is a stepping stone to absolute power. Confusion, when you have intelligent people in a room, obviously they will have different views. As a leader, if you surround yourself with all yes-mans and say, hey, I want to go into the room and I want everybody to say yes to me, you will never succeed. You need to have the humility and the intelligence to have people who have competing skills and who have complementing skills. No organization will succeed if you have imagine if you have all batsmen in a team, no bowlers, or no wicket keepers. You can't have 11 people. So you need to have a team of people who will be able to, in fact, more often than not, clarity comes out of confusion. Conflicts are important, provided you know how to manage conflicts. Avoidance of conflict is not the right thing to do. Because if you're avoiding conflict as a manager, as a leader, that means you are not encouraging. I'm not saying that you go ahead and create conflict deliberately. Conflicts happen because people are motivated for a cause and they are passionate about it. When you have passionate people achieving to do something, they will all come with different ideas. And the more passionate you are, you will not let your team fail. You will come and fight for it. That's what the anarchy is all about. Lastly, what did I learn in my last 27 years? Never ever delegate hiring. When you want to hire people for your team, whether you are a leader, whether you are just a manager, ensure that you participate in the recruitment of every single person in your team, because when you recruit people, you are actually recruiting them for your life, being with you. And the cultural match is very important about what you go ahead and do the right thing in terms of hiring. Everyone should sell, which means that you should know what your last mile customer is looking for. If you are in product or if you are in tech or if you are in marketing, it doesn't mean that you don't need to meet your customers. If you meet your customers, if you are in HR, for example, you can say, what the hell, why should I go ahead and meet customers? But if you are hiring for your team members, you should know what kind of skill sets are required, because what is the expectation of the customer. So product, marketing, technology, HR, finance, operations, no matter where you are, make it a point to meet customers. Deep customer insight is the best kept secret. And the more and more and more organizations spend time on understanding the evolving needs of the customers, organizations will succeed. Articulate the business revenue model constantly, because when you are a leader and when the world around you is changing, you have something in your mind. You know that this is what I am aspiring to do, but people below you do not know what you are aspiring to do. There is a huge communication gap between what the leader thinks to what the soldier thinks or what the front line thinks. So it's important for you to communicate effectively and take tough calls, be decisive. I mean, you can't emotionally get attached. If there is something which is not working within the cultural fitment of your organization, you should be able to let go of that person or the team or the product. You can't just get emotionally attached to anything. Dream big. You know, they say, jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. If you can't see something, if you can't visualize something, you can't achieve it. Whatever you dream, whatever you visualize, you always look for something. If you can't aim to achieve a 5 out of 5, what is wrong if you want to get an O grade? If you don't even think for getting an O grade, you won't get a C grade also. So always aim for the best. Give your best shot. In that moment, in that minute, can you give your best shot? Can you give what you can do to the best extent possible? Karmaneva adhikarastha ma phaleshu kadashana. You don't have the right to determine your outcome, but you can do your duty to the best extent possible. Lastly, communicate. More problems happen in life because people don't communicate. Or people think that, you will be able to read my mind, or you will be able to understand. And today, another biggest problem is in communication is these emails. I will send out emails to 10 people with BCC, CC, and irrelevant people are marked on the email. What if you just take the phone and talk to somebody? Avoid email as the first mode of communication. Take the phone and speak to people. People do exist. And I'll tell you, more problems in life comes because of emails. And more problems are solved because people speak to each other on phone. And more is avoid even phone calls. Go and meet the person face to face. We are not in a pandemic world. There are two people in the same campus or same office. They live in the same office, live in the same rooms or maybe next rooms, but they write emails. You just can't go and walk to somebody and say, hey, I have a difference of opinion with you. This is what you feel, this is what I feel. Let's say, come and talk. WhatsApp groups with 20 people, where only 2 people are required. One person has to talk to the other person, but we create 20 people with 20 different groups and forward the same crap and create problems. Communication is today being abused after WhatsApp. Communication is just take the phone and talk to people or walk to people, talk to people. In fact, you've heard about this Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Musharraf meet in Agra, right? Bigger problems can be solved by just facing people. Nobody is an enemy. We actually build, walls in corporate world saying, they all work for the same company, they all have the same goal, they all have the same target, but they fight so hard not to collaborate, but to compete. This is something that, we should avoid. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. I mean, this is where the power of intentions are. When your intention is so powerful, if you have positive thoughts, everything happens. And tadastu, they say, right? So I'll go back to my first exercise before I conclude. If all of you get up in the morning, visualize that you are the best person in the world. You are the most talented person in the world. You are the most gifted person in the world. And you have got an attitude of gratitude. Start the day with an attitude of gratitude, thanking God for what He has given you. And start that day with a pure, positive intention. And if you are able to do that, if all of us are able to do that, I'm sure we can succeed in every walk of life that we do. Once again, I thank you all for giving me this wonderful opportunity to reflect upon everything that I learned from this institute, everything that I learned from being a student, being a devotee, or rather what I continue to learn by reading Swami's literature or by contemplating on what Swami taught us. Let me conclude with a prayer to Swami. Swami, from this very moment, let us all surrender ourselves to you. Let us all become useful instruments in thy hands. And let us all conduct ourselves in a manner that befits us to call ourselves as Sai students. Om Sri Sai Ram. Thank you.
Om Sri Sai Ram. Thank you, sir, for such an insightful session. Sir has taught us that entrepreneurship is an art and science. I would like to summarize sir's teachings into 4 C's. We must have customer insight, collaboration, communication, and culture. Sir also said that communication is the key to success. Communication helps us to break the barriers between each other. It helps us to resolve conflicts and progress in life. Sir has also taught us that to be an effective manager, we have to adapt and embrace to changes. Once again, thank you, sir, for such an nice session. I would like to request Simon, sir, Assistant Professor, to hand the token of gratitude to Mr. V. Suresh. Saram brothers, now we'll have a tea break. We will assemble back after 20 minutes from now. Saram.
I would like to offer my humble salutations at the divine lotus feet of our beloved Bhagavan. I deem it my privilege to introduce today's guest of honor, Sri Sathya Pramod. Sri Sathya Pramod is a seasoned finance professional with extensive experience spanning over 2 decades in the industry. As a chartered accountant, he has demonstrated expertise in various sectors, including startups and consulting enterprise. Having worked with renowned firms like Deloitte, EY, AOL, QK, and Tally. He is currently serving as the CEO of KS Square Consulting Private Limited. Sir is adept in direct and indirect taxes, covering tax planning, strategy, compliance, and litigation. His role as a CFO/controller in different organizations has equipped him with insights into mergers and acquisitions, fundraising, regulatory, compliance, and risk mitigation, among others. Sir has an extensive track record as an advisor and investor across various ventures, including V Tiger CRM, Superfoods Valley Private Limited, The Finance Story, Nutty Yogi, and Voya. His involvement extends to serving as an advisor both full-time and part-time in his ventures. Additionally, he is affiliated with The Finance Story, a niche digital media platform that caters to finance professionals and students. Educationally, Sir holds a CA in Accounts and Finance from the Institute of Chartered Accountant of India and a BCom in Accounting from our own Sri Sathya Sai Institute of Higher Learning. He is also a part of our institute's Innovation Council. Now, I would like to call Sri Sathya Pramod here to address us all.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. It feels good to come back to Muddenahalli. I mean, I'd come here with Swami, I think it was in 1995, before all of you guys were born. Swami had got us here, and he spoke in Kannada and everything. It was a good feeling. I mean, Swami came with us in a bus. Can you imagine Swami coming in a bus? He came in a bus from Puttaparthi, and we came here, and we had a good time. Especially he spoke in Kannada and things like that. So it feels good to come back to the institute. Thanks for inviting me, everyone from the Muddenahalli team. And first of all, apologies. I typically like to come in white and white, but I had a few meetings and I couldn't get time to change. Didn't get time to go back home, so I had to manage with the same blue color pant. So I thought, I mean, I was in Parthi speaking about innovation. How do startups need to do things? What do students need to know when they want to think of doing something and things like that? But I think that's something that I thought more from a finance angle. If you look at how startups are made, right? I mean, typically you get an idea, you think that that's a scalable idea. You find someone who comes and tells you that, okay, I'm ready to partner with you on the idea. And after that, what happens, right? You see that there's a big market. You see that there are people going behind. People may like what I do. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be anything. I mean, just now Karkinos was there. So Karkinos, both the Venkats thought that there is a good idea to be, that germinated. But then what happens, right? I mean, you need a good team to support you. For hiring a good team, you need money, right? So I'm here to talk to you about money, about how do startups need to think about money, how money happens for the startups, and what are all the interventions that you guys need to get in to figure out, okay, is this going to work, not work, and things like that, right? I typically like to make it very interactive. If you guys have questions in between, please come by and talk. Please come by and ask the questions immediately, and I will, of course, come back and talk back to you. Let's try and make it more, what do you say, easy on each other, right? Instead of you having something in the mind, coming back. If you have a question, nothing is a bad question. So please always ask me in between. Let's make it interactive, right? So I thought, so how many of you know about startups, right? I mean, in the sense that, can someone tell me 5 good startups in the country that have made it big? I can't hear. Zerodha, okay. Zomato, fine. Flipkart, good. Okay, PhonePe, Paytm, good, right? So all these are companies which are almost there out there asking for people's money, right? The toughest thing in the world, okay, everyone can tell 100 things are there. The toughest thing in the world is to get a person to put his hand in his pocket, get out money and give you. That is the toughest thing in the world. There are hundreds of things that are vying for that one note. But then for him to tell that, okay, this is what I'm going to give it for, that becomes the toughest thing in the world. So all these companies have reached a stage where they can ask general public for money. So if you look at Paytm, they went public. Okay, if they go to, without even seeing the owner of the company, I'm ready to give the money, which means that I've reached a stage, right? It could, I mean, there are other companies like Tata's, Reliance, XYZ, they've reached that stage. But then these were companies which were born 10, 12, 14, 15 years ago, right? And we are ready to bet on that company, right? So how did they get there? How did they actually go there? It is a mix of all the different things that happens, right? The right kind of marketing, the right kind of product, the right kind of money that they got, the right kind of people that they have, and the right kind of market that they're going after, right? So I thought I'll just take you through this whole journey as to how this funding happens. So typically, if you look at Paytm, right? One of their first funders was a company called Cisco, right? Cisco put in money early on, and then even before Cisco, actually, there was a fund called, at that time, we used to call it, get the name, what is now Elevation Partners. It used to be called, I forget. So Elevation Partners was the first guy to bet on this company called 197 Communications, which is Paytm today, right? They took the bet, seeing the founder, telling that, okay, this founder is he's a rock star founder. He can probably sell ice cream to Eskimos, that kind of a story, right? So I'll bet on this guy. He may probably look at building a large enterprise, right? So they took the first bet. But how did that happen? How does that happen? I mean, everyone need not be a Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Everyone need not be a Binny or a Sachin Bansal. Everyone need not be a Nikhil or a Nitin Kamath kind of a thing, right? So how does this whole process happen, right? I just thought I'll take you guys through a little bit. Just as a disclaimer, I was at the same time last week I was in IIT Madras. So the people there, the entrepreneurship cell guys there wanted me to talk about it. Initially, I thought I'll talk about something else, but then I was speaking to Simon Orr. He said, "Why don't you take our guys also through this thing?" So I said, "Okay, this is a good thing that we can talk about." So I thought we'll talk a little bit about investment process. How does it happen? A little bit on accounting fundamentals. Probably you guys can teach me that if I'm not extremely good at that. Then a little bit of what happens, what does a investor look for, right? Planning, how do you do a planning analysis? How do you actually build a financial model? That's something actually I did not even learn, whether it was in my 11th, 12th, or a BCom, or even in CA. I could read the financials well. I could tell this is what is happening. But if you ask me to build a model from zero, it was not that easy, right? Because you need to think of 100 different factors as to how a business will run. That I started probably learning after I started working with startups. I'll just take you through that. How does the entire assumption process happen and things like that, and then typical how do people put money into companies, and if time permits, we can talk a little bit about a few examples, right? So if you look at investment process, typically how it happens. I'm talking this more from an investor standpoint. An investor, how does he look at it? Say, for example, you guys have a wonderful idea. 2-3 of you get together, come with a wonderful idea, and tell that, okay, this is what we want to do, right? So you guys come out with that idea. Let's take this example of, you come with an idea of making this podium, right? So typically podiums are made by carpenters, XYZ. I built a 3D cutting machine and things like that, which can make these podiums. It can make it scalable. This can be a AI-led podium. It can talk. It can probably structure itself based on the height of a person. It can read what the person can probably talk, and 100 other things is what you want to do, right? So you have this idea, but what happens next, right? When you go to an investor, he'll tell, so what? You have a great idea. There are millions of ideas in this world. Everyone has 10,000 ideas in their head, right? But is everything, for me as an investor, what matters is, I give you 100 rupees, can you give me back 1,000 rupees? Okay, that's what matters to me, okay? So tell me how are you going to make it? That's where this whole thing of modeling comes in. So I need to tell how much will it cost for me to make this podium, the AI-led podium or a machine-led podium, whatever you want to call it, right? What does it take to make? What does it take for me to convince a person to buy it? And how do I sell this thing at scale, right? So it involves a lot of thinking, right? Just to prepare one podium, it may cost me 100 rupees. But for me to prepare 1,000 podiums, is it going to cost me 80 rupees per podium? Or is it going to cost me 120 rupees per podium? So there are many factors that go into whether it's on the cost side, whether it's on the revenue side and things like that. So that's where this whole thing of financial modeling comes in. I think it becomes extremely important. Once that is done, the investor goes, he says that, okay, this financial model looks okay. You have given me this model. Just in case you're not going to hit those numbers, if you hit 80% of those numbers, it's still a very interesting kind of a business that you're doing. Or if it does better than 100%, of course, I'm very happy. So can I actually look at the feasibility of this, right? Is it actually going to work? We call that process a due diligence process, both from the business side of things. So what does he do? He looks at my numbers. I would have said that first year I'm going to sell 1,000 podiums. Is that actually doable? For selling 1,000 podiums, how many people do I need to reach out to? For reaching out to so many people, how do I reach out to so many people, right? Am I going to do direct marketing? Am I going to sell it to another distributor who's going to sell? Am I going to do digital marketing, for example? I need to be known, right? So that entire due diligence process, is the numbers that I've taken to make this podium actually going to work? Can I actually sell? The entire due diligence happens. After that, investors typically are a group of people, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20, 100,000 come together, and they have something called an investment committee. So someone sees this and says that is a wonderful idea. They will go ahead and pitch it to their larger group, which says that, okay, is this going to work, does not work, and things like that. So if the investment committee says yes, right, then they get into this thing called a term sheet negotiation. So term sheet is like, you need 1,000 rupees to make this to run the business, right? I'll give you the 1,000 rupees, but what will I get back for that, right? So that's where the negotiation happens. So I come and tell, I'll give you 10% of the company. He says, no, that is not enough. Currently, if you as Satya go away, then what will I do with the company? For example, you lose interest. So he bakes in all his thoughts, he bakes in all his risks and things like that, and then figures out and comes back and tells that, okay, I need 20% of your company. I'll give you the 1,000 rupees, for example, right? So that's where the term sheet negotiation happens. Then there are different clauses. I don't want him to come and trouble me when I'm actually running the company, asking me 100 details, 1,000 details and things like that. So I get into that phase. After that, the entire documentation happens. He becomes a shareholder in my company, and then he gives me the money, right? So this is typically how a investment happens, right? Any questions? So I'll skim through this fast. I'm assuming you guys know all of this. So typically, it's a balance sheet, income statement, or a P&L and a cash flow, right? You guys, since you guys are finance guys, BCom guys, you understand what is a balance sheet. It's as of one date, right? 31st March, 31st December, 30th June, whatever that date is, right? As of that date, what are your assets? What are your liabilities? Okay, let's talk a little bit about it instead of me going through it. How do you differentiate between a P&L and a balance sheet? Yeah, please. Okay, so can you just tell everyone what is an asset, what is a liability?
So asset is basically our investments which we made over the years, like machineries, building, land, and whereas like P&L are our whole year expenses, like what we did, what happened, like sales will come under P&L, and then how much for purchasing some raw materials, all those things will come under P&L. P&L is for the whole yearly basis, but then balance sheet is for like today what is the situation of the business.
Wonderful, excellent. So balance sheet is at a point of time. So as of 31st March. So you never say balance sheet for the period April 22 to March 23, right? You tell that balance sheet as of 31st March 23 or 31st March 24 or whatever that is. But when you say a P&L, it's for a period of time. So basically you're saying your performance over a period of time is tracked in your income statement or P&L. But your position as of a date is tracked on the balance sheet, right? So this becomes important. I mean, I'm sure you guys know it. Like I said, disclaimer that this was done for non-finance guys, which was more the technology kind of guys. So, but I said, I'll do this, right? But what happens in an early stage company, the most important thing is not the balance sheet or P&L, but how well you conserve cash. How are your cash flows looking, right? Is your cash flow positive? Do you have enough money to run the business? That becomes that becomes the most important thing in any startup. Typically, why do startups die? 95% of them die. 90% of them at least die, not because the idea is bad, but they did not manage their cash well. Imagine you getting a credit from your supplier for 15 days and giving a credit of 60 days or 90 days. So where do you find that money for 75 days, right? So it becomes extremely important when anyone does anything in an early stage company, how well you manage cash flows. And typically startups don't have the luxury of hiring multiple finance people to run their operations, right? And they all struggle in this aspect. Most of them struggle in this aspect. They don't know how to manage cash. They don't know how much of inventory to buy. They don't know what kind of advances to pay for their supplies. So typically what happens, you think that the founders, they think that okay, I'm getting a 5% discount if I pay cash immediately, right? So they go ahead and buy inventory for 6 months. Okay. But to push that inventory out of my factory, it takes me 9 months. So that inventory is just sitting almost idle for 6 months. I would have said that, okay, I'm getting a 5% discount, but that 5% discount, is it really worth? Because my financing cost itself, say, is about 2.5%, 3% a month. Because these early stage companies, they go for debt and things like that. So 5 months, it costed me 15% to finance that inventory. But I've only got a 5%, 5% discount on my purchase, right? So it becomes very, very important. So people typically look at just the P&L, but they don't look at the balance sheet / cash flow. If the guy was smart enough, he looked at the cash flow and said that, look, I can probably get inventory in a day's time. I can buy it. Even if I'm paying 5% more, it's okay. But I'll just buy one day before I get an order, right? So you need to be smart enough, extremely smart, to actually run this whole thing. So cash flow becomes one of the most important things, right? I suppose you are well aware of this side of things. So this is basically a few nomenclatures that I thought are important from a startup's point of view. Capital, revenue, fixed, variable. Can someone tell me what a fixed versus a variable cost is? Yeah, please. You can tell loudly, yaar. It's not like a... Those that are fixed. Give me examples.
Rent, which you pay for the building or something. Then coming to variable cost, these costs actually vary from time to time. For example, you have salaries, like the worker changes, then the salary paid to him also varies from time to time.
Okay. So let me ask you one thing. How would you consider commissions paid? For example, so I have commission agents who sell my product, right? Is that a fixed cost or variable cost? I pay commissions to these guys.
It's a variable cost, sir.
So the lesser the fixed cost a company has, the better it is at making, being successful, right? Try to keep your fixed cost as low as possible, right? Because that's a commitment. Whether you like it or not, you're going to spend it, right? So make it as variable as possible, because variable cost, for example, like he said, selling commission, right, is only going to happen if I'm going to make a sale. And if I'm going to make a sale, I'm going to make a profit. I'm assuming that I'm going to make a profit. So if I'm going to make a profit, I don't mind spending that money, right? But if I'm not going to make a profit, if I'm not going to make a sale, why should I pay? I mean, I'm paying rentals, I'm paying. So if you look at the new ways of doing business, a lot of them are coming and making everything as variable as possible. So for example, you have all these malls in Bangalore, for example, right? So the mall owners take a very little fixed element in their rentals. They take most of it as a percentage of profit, right? So, for example, I don't mind also that time if I have a store in a mall and I'm making 1 crore a month kind of revenue, right? The mall owner comes and tells me, he gives a clear, say I want to be I want to have a Nike showroom inside a mall, for example, right? So I go give the mall owner my business plan. I tell him that, look, this is what I'm planning to do. So the mall owner typically would have charged me 2 lakh rupees a month, right? So what does he say? He comes and tells me, don't break your head. You come and put a store in my mall. First of all, it enhances the value of the mall. Having a Nike showroom enhances the value of the mall. What I will do is, I will make sure that if you're not doing extremely well, I will still support you. So give me 20,000 or a 50,000 rupee rent every month, a fixed rent. Remaining, on your sale, give me 5% royalty, for example. So only if it becomes more like a partnership, right? I as a mall owner need to pull people into the mall, okay? And you as a brand need to pull that person into your store and get that sold, right? So it becomes more a partnership kind of a thing. And for me as a Nike showroom guy, I still don't have too much of a fixed expense, right? So these days, if you look at newer ways of doing business, the earlier days, for example, everyone was like more on a fixed model and less on a variable kind of a thing. But these days, everyone is trying to make it as variable as possible. It helps both sides, right? Any questions? Similarly, capex versus opex or capex versus revenue. You guys understand that, right? Right? Okay. So typically, these are the terms that we generally use when we make a presentation to a investor or anyone that needs to understand. So typically, you start from your sale, then come to your gross profit, then EBITDA, then EBIT, and net profit, right? I'm assuming all of you understand these terms. So let's spend some time on what is more important here, right? When I need to create a model, what are the different things that I do? So typically I create an operating budget, which gives me a budget of what will happen to run an operation. When we talked about this podium, right? So an operating budget will talk about how many podiums can I sell? How much will it cost for me to make a podium? What are the different expenses that go to make this podium? That is a typical operating budget. To operate this factory, to make this podium, what all will it cost? What does the capital budget do? The different machinery, the buildings, land. If I'm taking any if I'm taking any IP from someone else, we talked about this being AI led. If I don't have the AI myself, I probably license it out from someone else. So buying that IP, all these costs go into making a capital budget, right? And then how do I manage my cash, which again becomes the most important thing. So from these two, I come in and make up a cash budget kind of. I'm sure all of you know about the ratios. I mean, typical ratios that are tracked by investors. It could be anything around the activity, liquidity, solvency, profitability. Can someone talk to me about what these could mean? What does a solvency ratio mean? What does being solvent mean? Yes, please.
Madam, so the liquidity ratio means that if we can pay the people like our creditors in time, that's the liquidity ratios. Solvency ratio is that if we are solvent, that we don't run into some debt problems or some other problems regarding our cash in a longer period of time. Profitability ratios are what is there in for the investors, how much percent of our profits we are giving to our debt holders, how much percent of our profits we are reinvesting into our businesses, how much percent of our profits we are going to give our equity shareholders, and activity ratios are how much our turnovers are going to be up on our inventory and all those various aspects. So.
Excellent. So I think So you guys would have seen it more from a academic point of view, but we see it on a day-to-day basis in organizations, right? I see companies not being able to collect well and pay well, okay? Which means my liquidity is going a little haywire, right? I see companies which are which I know that whether I infuse as much capital as possible, but still going down under, which means that there is a issue with whether their going concern slash solvency is strong or things like that. Profitability, I think we all understand. Activity also, I think you guys understand whether how things are going, right? So typically, I can share this with all of you. I think typically a good ratio is what any investor looks for in a company, whether it's in terms of how many receivable days you want. So typically, if I have a receivable days of 100 of say 30 and a payable days of say 45, I'm running a good business because I'm collecting from the market in 30 days, but I'm paying my supplier only in 45 days. But if it is ulta, which is if I'm collecting from the market in 45 days, but I'm paying off my debtors in my creditors in 30 days, it means that for 15 days I don't have that cash, right? So it becomes important to manage that cash well. So typically, a few ratios is what I wanted to generally talk about, which every investor looks for, right? Whether it's in terms of profitability, whether it's in terms of activity, solvency, things like that, right? Any questions till now? I mean, I'll be honest, I can talk a lot more from a very, non-academic perspective, because the only thing I know well is how do you read a actual company, right? I mean, if you look at a balance sheet, I know where that entry is going to come from, for example, right? Because that's how we are trained kind of a thing. So I have a team of 60 people who do this, right? So we keep doing this pretty much on a daily basis. If you throw typically a balance sheet, you know that, okay, these are the things that are not doing well and things like that, right? So please ask me if you think something is doing good, something is not doing good, and I would love to come back and answer, right? So this is one of the most important things, right? So how does the cash get converted? If you look at it, you start from, say, production, you put in some money there, then that goes into, then you go ahead, collect something, then you go ahead, pay. So this cash conversion cycle in any startup or any company for that matter is the most important thing. How many times can you roll over this process in a year? The number of turns that you can do, the better it is for the company. For example, there are companies which only do large capex projects, right? For them, the turnovers will be very, very long. But then that is their business. That's how they do it. But if you're looking at selling podiums, if you're looking at selling flowers, if you're looking at selling anything small, right? The more number of times you go through this cycle, the better it is for that business, right? So I think I'll spend a little bit of a time on this. Okay, how is a model actually created? If you give a balance sheet, then you can always, or if you give a trial balance, then you can always make a balance sheet. You can make a cash flow statement, things like that. But what happens to make the trial balance? And how do those transactions actually happen? I think that becomes important also to look at, right? So typically, what are the decisions? You can take a lot of corporate decisions based on a financial model. For example, just now when I was leaving, there was a guy who had an idea who wanted to look at leasing equipment to industries and making money out of it, right? For which he wanted my team to build a financial model, right? So he had an investment decision which he wanted to prove, but that can be proved only through a financial model, right? I want to buy another company, for example, for which I want to look at its financials and see that whether that company's goals and my goals is similar and whether it matches. So I need to look at a financial model, build a financial model, and merge it with my companies to see that is 1 plus 1 going to be 3? Is 1 plus 1 going to be 11? And things like that, right? So corporate transactions happen. For it to happen, it only happens through a financial model. Whether I want to invest in a project, I'm making these podiums today. Tomorrow I want to start making chairs, right? Is it feasible? Okay. Can I build a financial model to make a chair? So project finance is I'm ready to spend 10 crores to make a project to make chairs. Is that viable? How will I get the money back and things like that becomes extremely important. And typical year-on-year corporate decisions. Do I grow 10%? Do I grow 12%? Do I grow 18%? Do I grow just 2%, right? Because can I get finance from here? Does my financial model look so good that my liquidity ratios are good, my activity ratios are good, that I can go to a bank and tell that, look, why don't you give me a loan and I want to grow 12% a year kind of a thing, for which also financial model becomes extremely important. So this gives you a typical idea around what is the purpose, right? I mean, we talked a lot about it. Are you managing your cash flows well? What kind of business are you in? How are you generating revenue? How are your costs structured? What assets do you own? Are they financed or are they owned? Are you profitable? So these are all the answers that typically you get in basically a health check of companies, right? So typical financial models, the 3-statement financial models, like we know, is the balance sheet, P&L, cash flow kind of a thing. Then you have a DCF model, which is discounted cash flows. You guys are aware of discounted cash flows? What happens, how it works, right? And a few others, right? So I think this becomes an important part when you actually look at forecasting. You can look at creating, say for example, we talked about making this podium, right? How do you create a financial model for this podium? Can someone tell me? I spoke a little bit about it, but how do you create a financial model for this podium?
So first thing we see is the fixed, what are the costs going to be for making the podium, from where we are getting the materials, and what is going to be the market size of our target group. Suppose if the podium, we are spending a lot to make the podium, but it's catering to a very small group who's like not ready to pay for it or not ready to change for it, then it's a bad model. If the costs are more than the price, or the price is too overviewed for the value of the value derived from the product, then we can say it's a bad financial model. Then from the costs and the profits which you're going to make and what you are seeing in us may not be what we are seeing in the market. So those are some things which we combine together, and we try to get the value of the product compared to the costs and the profits and the share of the company equity, debt, and how we are going to get the money from the investors.
Good. Anyone else? Okay. Let's look at it two ways, right? I can build a financial model, like he said. I know how to make this podium. Okay. Can I build it from the bottom? What do you mean by from the bottom, right? I build it from every expense I know that will go on to make this. I need wood. I need a machinery to cut this wood. I need labor. I need glue. I need cutters. I need X, Y, Z. So I accumulate all those costs and tell that, okay, I have 100 rupees as the cost, right? Then I say that, okay, I made this, so this I've got it up to 100 rupees. Then what will I do? I will take this, I need to go sell this. I need people to understand or people to know that, okay, there is this podium and Satya is making these podiums. And I need 10 people to go around in the market around Muddenahalli and tell that, okay, there are podiums. Do you want to buy? So I need to pay those people their salaries, pay them their conveyance, XYZ. So that becomes more of selling, general administration. Then I need to have an accountant. So I accumulate all the costs and tell that, okay, 100 rupees to make this podium, then another 40 rupees to actually go take it to the market. Okay, on top of that, I want a 20%, 25% profit or a margin. So I'm going to make this 175 rupees or a 200 rupees for the podium, right? So I've started from below and I've gone up to 200. Then I say that there possibly are 100 people in and around Muddenahalli who can buy it, of which 25% may actually buy it. And then I start going up, telling that, okay, after Muddenahalli, I go to Chikbalapur, then I go to Bangalore, XYZ, and this is the total. So I started from below and went up. This is what we call a bottoms-up analysis, right? Then there's another way of doing it, right? I know that from somewhere I've heard that podiums are great, right? It's one of the best business to be in. Right? I look at how many podiums are there in the overall world market, for example, right? So there are possibly 1 million podiums that are sold. And there's a big market for another 1 million to be sold the next year. So I start from top. I say that I want to capture, there's a 100 crore market there. I want to capture 1% of that market. And I start coming down. Then I say that 1 crore is my market, is what I want to go after. In 1 crore, I want an end profit of, say, 20 lakhs, right? Then I start getting my expenses down there. So I started there from the top, right? In many cases, you start from, okay, there are 140 crore people in India. This is my overall market. Then my addressable market is, say, 20 lakhs. So I come down and say that, okay, this is what it is. And that becomes your top-down analysis. So either you do it top-down or you go bottoms up or you do, like you say, regression, right? So where you say that I want my company's revenue to be so much and base my expenses based on that. So typically, like he explained, you do a mix of top-down and bottoms-up because you have ideas on both sides, right? In the sense, you know a little bit of top-down, a little bit of bottoms-up, and then you merge both of them and get to a nice financial model. If you're already working year on year on year, I have a 5-year or a 4-year history, then you can always do a year-on-year analysis where you say that I want to grow 20% from last year. And based on that, I keep putting in my numbers. Right? So the framework is something like this. You start with your assumptions. That becomes by far that's like the foundation for any financial model. By far the most powerful thing which can actually drive your financial model, your assumptions and your drivers. So typically you say that, okay, if I bring my cost of my product down from a 10 rupees to a 9 rupees, I can probably grow so much. That becomes your driver, right? A key driver in this whole thing. So you look at assumptions, drivers, and the typical income statement, balance sheet, your cash flow, and then your supporting schedules, right? So this is how a financial model flows. So by far the most important thing, how well have you thought through the assumptions? Assumptions can only come through when you exactly know how a business runs. If you need to make a financial model to run Muddenahalli college and hostel, you need to know exactly what happens in this whole thing. That's why the finance guys, so typically if you see, a lot of CFOs are becoming CEOs. Why? It's because they understand every aspect of how the business runs. Whether it's from a cost perspective or from a revenue perspective, they understand it. Right? Otherwise, I'm not a good CFO. I don't understand my costs. I don't understand my revenue. I'm not a good CFO. So for you to understand that, the assumptions of both revenue and cost becomes extremely important. How will something grow if I do something? The what if analysis that we keep doing, right? The scenario analysis that we keep doing becomes extremely important. Once you do those two, then plugging it into an income statement or schedules, balance sheet, cash flow becomes easy. But like I said, that becomes the most important thing. Typically, when we do analysis or when we create models, we do a scenario-based approach, right? Where we say that a normal scenario, a best-case scenario, and a worst-case scenario, right? Where nothing so typically when an investor or when a company comes to us, every founder thinks that his baby is the best, right? I mean, his thought process is the best. He's thought through the best of idea and things like that. So he comes and he says that, okay, I can achieve 100 in year one. But we as people from finance typically understand that it's not such an easy market. He can't achieve more than 60 or 80 kind of a thing. So we moderate or we calibrate his expectations and tell that let's do it at 80. But still we know that there could be market conditions that could actually push the 80 down to a 60. So you do a 60 versus 80 versus 100 kind of a scenario and then build financial models based on that. So you guys understand income statement and balance sheet, how things flow year on year kind of a thing, right? So, do you guys actually use Excel a lot? Okay. So, I'll anyway share this. So, typically we use these hacks or these small things to figure out that, okay, are there issues in the model that I've built, right? At the end of the day, if my balance sheet doesn't tie up, it doesn't mean anything. There could be some problem somewhere. And when I am actually giving this model to an external investor, it becomes extremely important that my numbers are correct. And it becomes important to do the sanity checks and figure out where the numbers are flowing, right? It becomes extremely important. Then we talked a little bit about valuation. I think, like I told you, what becomes more important in this whole scheme of things is how much equity am I ready to forego for getting money into the company. I think that becomes super important, extremely important in fact. So for which you need to understand what is the valuation of your company. I have created something, I have created an enterprise or an organization, but I need to know how much is that organization worth. When you say Paytm is valued at say $5 billion or $8 billion, what does it actually mean? How did they arrive at the 5 billion or 8 billion? What does a DCF actually mean, right? End of the day, there are different ways of doing it, but I still, I have my bias. I feel discounted cash flow is by far the best method to value anything, right? Whether it is an organization, whether it's real estate, land or anything. Because in a DCF, you do consider pretty much everything. You start from the net profit, then you look at what are the different this ones, then you give different weights for different things. So you pretty much considered everything, every factor that could go right and wrong in the company. You considered everything that could go right because of the net profit that you start with, and you could consider everything wrong that could go with all the weights that you've given. So by far, according to me, DCF is a superb way of doing it. Can someone explain what a DCF is? Yes, please. Well, I'll just get some water.
Sir, when you project firstly cash flows, let's say pertaining to a project, you project the cash flows that the project is gonna, put out.
How do you project a cash flow?
So they can be like historical concepts. You can use standardized. There can be many forecasting techniques. You forecast the cash flows that are going to
I
come
mean,
through the
explain
project.
to me. Take a basic example.
Okay, let's say,
Let's talk about this podium.
Let's talk about the podium, sir. You initially mentioned that it's a 100 crore market. You're aiming for the 1 crore part of it in the market. Let's say your project after you set up the factory that makes this podium. Year on year, for the next, let's say 10 years, each year you might, with an increase of 5 to 10%, your revenue might be, let's say 50 lakh, some 40, 50 lakh each year. That's your projection for the revenue that you're going to make. You now discount it with the current interest rates or whatever.
Is it the revenue that you make or the cash that you generate? So there's a lot that happens. That's why I wanted to ask someone, what is the cash flow, right? There's a lot that happens between the revenue that you make and the cash that you generate. For example, let's take an example. I mean, see, when I was with like you guys, right, studying, I used to understand it more from an academic point of view, right? But what does actually cash mean? Right?
Sir, like let's say revenue can include the credit sales as well. Credit, whatever revenue can include the credit part of the revenue as well. Cash is basically the amount of money that is actually getting in cash or the equivalents, bank and other receipts. Cash is just the part that you're actually coming into the company, not just on paper, not on balance sheet.
How do you get that? How do you know this is what it is? And how do you, can you explain to me what a cash flow statement is?
Okay, sir. Cash flow statement basically we generally start from profit.
Okay. Now we are talking. Okay.
So we generally start from a profit, whatever our balance from the P&L account might be. Then we must have had some like non-cash, basically expenses like depreciation and some similar stuff that is on paper, that is although allowed by accounting standards, but it's not a cash expense. Actual money has not gone out of your pocket. You're just accounting for money. So those things you added back to the profit. Some other things might have to be deducted. There's a proper structure which we follow, and out the balance of that after financing activities, different activities, we add or subtract. Let's say assets let's say our assets have increased. So we might have purchased a plant. So that's cash going out. So we subtracted from that. So the amount that we reached at the end of the cash flow statements, it is the cash flow. It is the actual cash that has come in or gone out.
Excellent. I think this is a very good. Actually, I think it's important to understand for everyone what is a cash and a non-cash expense, right? So typically, what the biggest mistake that an entrepreneur typically does is when he says that I can make this podium for 100 rupees and I can sell it for 150 rupees. He starts assuming that if I sell 10 podiums every year, right? He starts assuming that my cost is 10,000 rupees, my profit is, my revenue is 15,000 rupees, and my profits are 5,000. He expects that 5,000 to be in his hand every year, right? But that is not what it is. What comes in and shows up as profit versus what cash you really have is very, very different. Which is where I think as finance guys, you guys will have a big role to play whenever you join a company, whenever you make a model, whenever you do any of these things, right? It becomes extremely important for you to tell that, okay, this is exactly what it is, right? So what we do so we work with at least about 85, 90 startups, different startups, right? Yes, when you do the MIS, you give them a clear thing telling that, okay, this is the profit you made, right? That till there, an entrepreneur understands, okay? Because he's a product guy, he's known to create these podiums, right? For example. But then what has happened behind, right? He has spent money to paint this room or to build this building. That has not gone through the P&L account. Like he said, only a part of it has gone through the depreciation, which you added back. It's a non-cash kind of expense. But he's paid money for this, right? It is sitting on the balance sheet. So you need to clearly tell him that, look, you may have a 5,000 rupee profit, but your cash is actually only 1,000 rupees because you've gone invested somewhere. You've gone and paid someone in advance, or you've given 90-day credit in the market. You spent cash to make this podium and sell it in the market, but you have not collected that money. So it becomes extremely, so all these things come in a cash flow statement. And two, if I'm discounting that to present day value, right? That is by far, according to me, the best way to value any asset. I mean, I'm looking at a company here as an asset. There's an asset, whether it's a plant and machinery, XYZ, whatever it is, right? So there are, I can get comfort looking at other models and benchmarking them against a DCF. But then typically I would still go ahead and say DCF is the best model. Probably a comparable company analysis is something that I'll get it close to. If for example, PhonePe is valued at a X, why shouldn't a Google Pay be valued at a 0.95x or a 1.05x? It shouldn't be too different, right? If PhonePe has 100,000 users, if Google Pay has 30,000 users, I'm just using an example. If it has a 30,000 users, typically per user, if I get the valuation down to, it should kind of match, right? Yes, you give a little bit of a discounting for the size, scale, and things like that. But roughly, these two things should give us a very good comfort of how valuation gets done, right? Typically funding for a startup happens in different ways. It could be equity, grant, and debt. Grant, let's leave it for time being, but mostly it would be a equity or a debt. It could be in terms of equity shares, preference shares, compulsorily convertible shares, or it could be in debt, a compulsorily convertible debt, or a convertible note. I mean, these things by itself can take a lot of time, but it's typically, this is what it is. And when you, have you guys seen a term sheet, how it is? What is a term sheet? Okay, let's look at this podium example, right? So I've run this business for 2 years. I've scaled. In year 1, I sold 100 podiums. In year 2, I've sold 500 podiums. In year 3, I'm planning to sell 1,000 podiums. In year 4, I'm planning to sell 5,000 podiums, say for example, right? So there is an investor who comes in and says that, look, you guys are doing an extremely good business. I see the potential of your business to go up from a X to a 10X kind of a thing. So I'm ready to fund you. You increase your capacity to 100,000 podiums, right? Because you're doing an extremely good business. Like how Elevation Capital or a Sequoia or a X or a Y or Z supported the different startups. So he comes and tells that, okay, this is what I want to do. And he issues this term sheet. So typically this is how a term sheet for a startup will look like, where you talk about how much am I ready to invest, how much percentage of your company will I want for me to invest, what are the different terms that I want to invest on, what is the right that I want to have, what is the responsibility as an investor I have, what is the right that you as a company has, what is your responsibility, and things like that. And so this is typically how a term sheet looks. Okay, this is by far one of the biggest thing that happens in any startup's journey. The first term sheet that they get becomes extremely important. It says that, okay, I will invest 10 crore rupees in your company for a 20% stake in your company, which values your company at 50 crores, right? So for 20%, if I'm giving you 10 crores, overall your value is 50 crores, right? So it becomes very, very important here. And then after this, typical negotiations and things like this happen. But at this stage is where an investor comes in and says that, look, I'm valuing your company at so much, and this is the reason I'm valuing it. Right? So this is one of the biggest milestones in any early stage company's journey. Right? Any questions till now? So typically I can get multiple term sheets. I can, it's like a bank sanction letter, right? If any of you or your parents have taken a home loan, for example, the home loan First, he gives you a sanction letter telling that your house is worth 1 crore. I am sanctioning you a loan of 75 lakhs, and these are the terms. I'll charge you 9% interest. This is going to be your EMI. If you're not paying it on time, this would be your interest. This would be your penal charges. I mean, all those different terms, right? Your house has to be hypothecated to me. Your house has to be, it can't be mortgaged. X, Y, Z, different terms. For a company, that's what this means, right? A term sheet where he says that how should a board operate? I come in, I want one board seat in your company. I want you to spend more than, say, 25 lakh has to be approved by me. These are different things that, how will you give me an exit? If the company is being sold, do I get the first right to get away and things like that, right? So this becomes an important thing. Any questions? Okay. If you look at economic times, for example, you'll read a lot of these terms, right? So you can, how much time do I have? 5-10 minutes? Right? You guys should be bored listening to people like, old people like us, right? But yes, but then I think when you go to the industry, this becomes an important thing. I mean, you probably would have heard CM 1, 2, 3. Contribution margins you would have studied in your costing and things like that. I won't spend too much time. But this concept of MRR, ARR becomes important. Okay. So typically why does a Zoho, for example, have you heard of Zoho? Why does a Zoho get valued whatever its valuation is? Versus why does say, for example, a Tally, right? Both are accounting softwares, right? Why doesn't Tally get the valuation of what a Zoho is? Anyone? Or let me use another example. Have you guys heard of Salesforce? Right. Why does Salesforce get valued so much versus, say, an Oracle?
So Salesforce might be a more popular of software as compared to the other one. So they might have more users.
Oracle is probably 35 years old. Salesforce is 15 years old.
Sir,
Oracle has a much bigger name than Salesforce.
But if the amount of subscriptions, basically the continuous revenue that they get month on month or year on year is more than Oracle, obviously they'll be valued more, right?
So explain a little bit more about that.
Okay, sir, let's say X number of users are using Salesforce. They're continuously going to pay their subscription fee every period. And Oracle's users are, let's say, less than Salesforce's. Obviously, their revenue will be less, sir.
So probably Oracle has 100,000 customers. Salesforce has 50,000 customers. Oracle charges a license fee of one-time license fee of 100,000, but Salesforce charges just $5,000 a month per user. But still, Salesforce is valued a lot more.
Sir, as you have mentioned, the recurring revenues. In Salesforce's case, the revenue is continuously recurring every period, every month in this case. And that, on the other hand, in the Oracle's case, the 1 lakh, the revenue does seem more, but it's one time. It's not continuously recurring. Once it's paid off, it's not going to continue for every period, every month coming back to us.
So how does that make a difference? I mean, Salesforce customers can always stop, right, paying. Isn't that more risky than me collecting all the money upfront?
So that does sound so, but something else, if you talk about a little bit of, I don't think I have a financial answer for this, but human psychology, we look at every business as a going concern. More importantly, future security also matters. Like for a company, for an investor, let's say, if it's a good consumer base, they're going to imagine that this is going to continue, and the users are going to keep paying rather than one-time users which might not come back.
Wonderful, excellent actually. I mean, yes, it took some time to get to that, but as a finance guy or as an investor, the biggest thing I need to know is how much of the revenue that I've made this year will keep continuing to come year after year after year, right? If you look at Oracle as a company, I mean, Oracle has also now moved into SaaS and things like that, but let's look at Oracle 10 years ago and Salesforce 10 years ago, right? Oracle used to go sell their servers, their service and things like that, right? One time to, say for example, they come to the institute and they sell it one time and we buy it at 100,000 rupees and we are just done with it, right? To get the next 100,000 rupee sale, Oracle has to go around in the entire market trying to figure out where, who else will I sell to, who else will I sell to. So the revenue that Oracle made one time may be much larger, but it is a one-time revenue. There is no recurrence of that revenue. As a finance guy, I get comfort only when I know that over the next 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, I have someone that I've already locked in, right? Yes, the guy may leave. That's what we call churn, right? I don't know. Churn. The guy may leave. But of the 100 people, 5 people may leave, 10 people may leave, but 90 will continue to stay. And typically in companies, for example, there's a big thing around Netflix, for example, right? Netflix is a subscription model, right? I have paid once, I get used to it, I get stuck to it. Every month, 199, 199, 199, I keep paying. So the confidence that this revenue will surely hit is a big thing for a finance guy or an investor. And that's what happens in SaaS, right? For example, if we take India and the US, right? US is very used to this subscription model. They pay month on month on month on month, right? In India, for example, we used to the buying one shot where I don't want to pay month on month. So, but then even for an accountant, you account this more as an operational revenue. It doesn't hit your balance sheet one shot. Money doesn't go up front. So subscription revenues, whether it's monthly recurring, annual recurring, becomes extremely important. I think, one of the things that you guys should know is, why do people harp on SaaS, subscription as a service, right? You keep getting subscription on month. Whether you do something, don't do something, that money keeps flowing into you, right? That gives the confidence to any investor that yes, they have 100,000 customers. Of this, even if 10,000 goes, it's fine. 90,000 will keep paying. But in case of Oracle here, I've sold it to 100 customers. But next year I have to go find new 100 customers. That's a big effort, right? That effort is something, it's very hard to get to. Then CAC is what we say, customer acquisition cost. How much money do I spend to acquire a customer? Then LTV is the lifetime value of a customer. In for example, a SaaS thing, right? Where a guy may stay as my customer for 7 years. Over 7 years, how much will I make, for example, and things like that. And churn rate is how many people will leave this one. Then we talk of different other things. But I think we're running out of time. I'll do one thing. I'll send this over to you guys. There are a few examples as to how business models work in these kind of scenarios, right? In an e-commerce company, what are the different levers or the drivers that you take? How do you prepare? In a SaaS company, what are the levers, drivers that you take? In a fintech company, what are the levers, drivers that we take, right? So by far, I think I just wanted to cover a few of these topics as to how do you model a financial statement, How do you look at these different terminologies when it comes to early stage companies, startups? I'm thankful that you guys called me to talk a little bit, to share a little bit of knowledge that I have. Would love to come and tell you whenever you guys want to hear more about. We can take one company and dig deeper into how to build a financial model for that and things like that. But then I thought that could get a little too technical. Why does things happen this way? Why do things happen that way? But we can do it if you guys want it at some other point of time. But thank you for calling me. Thank you, Manohar sir. Thank you everyone for calling me. And if there are any questions, I can take it. Yes, please.
Sairam, sir.
Sairam.
Sir, as you told that subscription model is a better than one time. But if we take the example of Byju's, they also had the same subscription model, but the valuation was high. But after 3 years, the valuation is going down and the company is also going in loss. So what is wrong in the model, sir?
So I think there are multiple things that went wrong with Byju's, right? I mean, I think, and I've been one of the. If you go and type my name, I think half the things that Google will throw up is my shouting back at Byju's, right? Telling that, I mean, you're not doing things the right way. So I think, which is where a lot of prudence comes into action, right? When a company is valued at 22 billion, okay, which is probably the large US corporates or even the large companies in the country are not valued 22 billion. 22 billion is a huge number. I mean, just think about it, right? Is that actually something that you're giving? If you looked at Byju's model, I think, yes, they were charging subscription, but they were more interested in the first time. They were selling tablets first, right? They were coming, giving tablets at home, charging X amount of rupees for that tablet. They were taking that revenue onto the books. There were a lot of governance issues in that organization, right? You don't grow to 22 billion overnight, right? I mean, they grew from a 15 to a 22 billion, I think, in 2-3 months' time. I mean, what have you actually added to add 7 billion to your valuation? So there were multiple things that went wrong in Byju's, right? I mean, it was more of investor greed. Byju's is a different example, right? But you look at, say, for example, a company like Zoho, right? Probably the product may not be as great as it sounds, but they have 1 million plus paying subscribers month on month on month. That is not easy, right? You have 1 million plus businesses that are paying you $50, $60, $80, $100 every month is a huge thing, and that is stuck on year on year on year. I come from a company called AOL, okay? So I'll give you a little bit of a background. AOL was the company which commercialized internet in the world, right? I mean, earlier internet was the US military started internet, right? Not too many people knew about it. Then AOL came, they did this whole thing of dial-in, where we used to have a modem and dial-in and things like that. So we used to charge subscription, right? Month on month on month, whether the guy uses it or not, he pays for internet, right? And that was a wonderful model. We used to do a revenue of about $25 billion, right? And this was, I'm talking 15 years back. And we had, just because of this subscription thing, right, we could buy another company called Time Warner. Time Warner is by far the largest media company in the world. We could buy Time Warner, right? AOL could buy. Then that became one of the biggest mergers which went bad, kind of a thing. But then why did people value AOL so much? Because they had about 20 million people. I think it was 14, 18 million, 19 million people who were paying to them month on month on month. Whether you did something or not, you just had to keep the lines up and running and have your software up and running. So it becomes a very, very, very sticky kind of a model. So everyone likes the sticky revenue in the sense that whether I like it or not, money should keep flowing in, right? I mean, it's like this. I'm running trains from Bangalore to Chikbalapur. There's a cost that I'm anyway running. The more number of people that get in, the more amount of revenue. So Byju's is a edge case kind of a thing. Let's leave Byju's alone. But if you look at other models, I think why is school a good model? Because you have students who are coming in. They don't need to you need to onboard the student in the first grade, right? After that, till the 12th grade, that student typically, unless there's something really bad that happens, he's there. So for 12 years, you know, this guy is going to pay me 50,000 rupees, 60,000, 70,000, 80,000. So I know where I'm heading as an organization. That becomes the most important thing. So Byju's is a little, little TEDA kind of a case. So let's leave Byju's. But otherwise, subscription or a SaaS revenue is a good concept, good way of earning money. Any other questions? I think you had a...
Sir, so far what we have talked in financial modeling, especially for a new startup, you said we basically forecast the cash flows or future revenues. Like, just based on that, investments are infused, because forecast, how believable, how dependable can just forecasts be?
Yeah. So I think there are different stages that investments happen, right? So like we say, the first round of investment, like we say, is the angel, families and friends round, right? My family, my friends, how much they believe me, how much they think I can actually grow and things like that. Next round, when we say, is an angel round. Then after that, we say is a pre-series A or whatever. Then we say a series A. So pre-series A is where probably a small VC firm or someone will come. Then a series A, which is a VC firm will come. Then you do a series B, series C, the larger VC firm comes. Then series D, for example, a private equity guy comes, and then either you go public or get sold to another large company, right? At all these different stages, the financial model is looked at a little differently, right? At a very early stage, 80% of the investment is made on the person who started this company. If, for example, let's take the case of Paytm, for example, right? When Elevation Capital put in the first check, they put it not for, yes, a little bit on the concept, they put it on Vijay Shekhar Sharma. They thought that, okay, this man has capability to do something, so I'm putting it on this guy, right? They valued the company at so much. But when it came to the next level, at that time it was probably a concept or a POC kind of a thing. When it came to the next level, then he probably had 100,000 to 10,000 customers. That's when the modeling started picking up, where they said that, okay, it's important that Vijay Shekhar Sharma is there. It's important that he's built a team around him. It is important there is a running financial model which probably has the legs to run fast and make some money, right? So the percentage weightage that you started giving becomes a little different. So 80 was when in the early stage on Vijay Shekhar Sharma, and 20 on the concept. Then it became, say, for example, 50 on Vijay Shekhar Sharma, 25 on the team, 25 on the financial numbers, right? Concept is kind of done at this stage. Yes, it's kind of working. 1,000 people are paying and things like that. Then you go to the next stage. Then again, the percentages, the weightages start looking different, right? There the team comes in a lot more, because the team has to go out, sell. The team has to build the product. The team has to, deliver results and things like that. So 50% on the team. then say 20% on the founder, 30% on how good the financial model is so that I can raise more capital, right? And once you start growing, the finance part starts increasing a little bit more, right? So when it comes to a series D kind of a stage, it will be more of how well am I running the organization. It becomes more of 60% for the financial, this one. At that time, whether it's Vijay Shekhar Sharma or Shankar Sharma, it doesn't matter. Anyone can run that company, right? So he goes away out of the picture, and governance starts coming in. So that's typically how it happens. Any other questions? I know I'm keeping you guys long, but I hope this was useful. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you, sir, for this very insightful session. Although we had learned all of this like in our classes and through our courses, but we never really knew how much of importance that this held. We got to know your industrial perspective, and that helped us a lot. So thank you again, sir. Now I request RLK Prasad, sir, to hand out our token to sir. Tomorrow's sessions will commence at 9 o'clock.